When a Christopher Nolan movie is in theaters, it is your obligation, well, it should be your obligation, to go see it in the biggest screen possible. And 2023's gift to cinema from Chris Nolan is Oppenheimer, which was written and directed by the infamous filmmaker responsible for the Dark Knight trilogy, for Memento, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Prestige, Inception, Dunkirk. And this movie follows a very similar path to Dunkirk in that it's a film that's sort of a period piece going back to both World War II and the Cold War as Chris Nolan attempts to tell his version of the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. The film goes through both the creation and the inception of the atomic bomb and what the consequences of the atomic bomb would be, taking the world out of World War II and into the Cold War and the arms race. The movie does a really stellar job of, once again, doing what he's done with other films like Memento and other movies he's done, where he does the non-linear storytelling, bouncing throughout different years, both during World War II and shortly after it, and then into the Cold War, using different kinds of color palettes and things like that to kind of differentiate where we're at in the story. So the movie acts as both a bit of a biopic as well as a real hard examination on science, but also turns into a suspense thriller, especially in the third act when it comes to the aftermath of the atomic bomb and the creation of it. Now, this movie has no CGI. None. Not a single shot is in CGI. Everything was done with practical effects and makeup, which they did a really clever thing here where you've got sort of subtle changes in the makeup for the different characters based on their ages. They didn't use de-aging technology or any of that stuff like they did in the Indiana Jones film or in tons of these recent Marvel projects and Star Wars projects. Instead, it was all done with really well done makeup, and they were able to mask how these characters looked to show us the progression of their life story. But as I mentioned, because the film is edited in such a way that's sort of like Memento, although it doesn't use the exact same gimmick, it's sort of like that non-linear storytelling. It actually helps the film really give you a bit more of a suspenseful narrative as things are kind of slowly revealed to you as the film goes on. This movie is basically a tribute to cinema before computers. This movie shows what you can do. This movie will be remembered because I'm telling you right now, this is going to get nominated for Best Picture. I mean, most of Nolan's movies get that nomination. This one's going to get it because this man literally made a film that came out in 2023 that didn't use any CG effects, that relied solely on good acting, good cameras, good practical effects, and a great script. And what made this script so great wasn't just the whole drama and thriller aspect of it, it was also the beautiful story that was woven by Chris Nolan himself. And what made it really interesting and thought-provoking is that this movie actually had something to say. When you're done with this film, it's going to be one that people are going to be talking about. Because I'm telling you right now, you can watch any horror movie you want to this year, any horror movie ever made, and this film and the way it portrays the dangers of nuclear weapons is going to terrify you. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you think. Even if you don't think that we're ever going to actually get into a nuclear war, the danger of what this technology, what this science has created is really the looming, scary force throughout the movie. It's very subtle, but it's there. Chris Nolan's script is a great script, and it really does a great job of really displaying the consequences of technology. It brings me back to that line from Jurassic Park that Jeff Goldblum said, where he's like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. And it really makes you think. And it obviously explores the creation of the atomic bomb from several different angles. To me, though, besides the great editing, the great filmmaking, the lack of CG, the fact that this guy's a master at using 70 millimeter film and IMAX cameras, all of that. The music is great. The music, it's a bit different. Ludwig Göransson does the score for this film, the same guy who did the score for the Creed movies, well, the first two, and Tenet. So he does sort of do a bit of a Hans Zimmer type of thing, but not quite. There's definitely some Hans Zimmer in there, but he definitely has his own style, being a Swedish composer. But the thing that everyone's going to be talking about is the incredible performances in this movie, yo. Cillian Murphy plays J. Robert Oppenheimer, and this is the role of his career. This is not The Scarecrow. This is not A Quiet Place Part 2. This is Cillian Murphy at his absolute best. The way that he emotes in the movie, his subtleness, the sort of moments in the film where he's thinking and getting excited about, coming up with this incredible scientific breakthrough, and then later realizing that this may have actually caused a problem and he may have created consequences that we don't even understand even to this day, what he may have started when it comes to this kind of weaponry being in the hands of humans. It's such a great character, and the way his eyes are in this movie, his eyes, his very subtle way that he speaks, a little bit of Ed Harris here in that performance. It was just, dude, he's going to get nominated for Best Actor, I would assume. Now, the other guy that has to get praise, and I should mention that Emily Blunt is great. Matt Damon is great. Matt Damon's great in everything. Robert Downey Jr., bro. Robert Downey Jr., this has to be Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance in a very, very long time. Here's a guy who has already made so much money from the MCU that he doesn't have to act ever again. But when he was given this script, it was almost like he was doing it just to prove that, okay, I did Tony Stark, I did Iron Man, I brought a new level of acting to the Marvel movies, to superhero movies as a whole. With this film, I'm going to go back to showing that I have the chops. This is, again, another one of his career performances. Best supporting actor, I can totally see that being the case here. With this movie, Chris Nolan wanted to make a point. He wanted to make a point that with talented actors and a great script, like I said earlier, you can really make magic, and that's what this film is. And it's not just the fact that I already mentioned Cillian Murphy and Emily Blunt and Matt Damon and Robert Downey. There's a lot more actors in this movie that pop up that I didn't even know were in it, including some of my favorite actors of all time. Some of my favorite actors, I'm not going to spoil it, but there are cameos here and smaller scenes from actors that have really busted their chops throughout the years who make appearances in this movie. It was almost like Chris Nolan was grabbing all these different people saying, hey, come be in my movie, to make a statement. And like I said, the movie has a very, very terrifying message about the dangers of nuclear power in the hands of humans. Like, that is what I'm left with by leaving this film, which I kind of knew before I saw it, but the movie was smart enough to not insult my intelligence and beat me over the head with it. It really sort of made it subtle, but made it a point, especially by the end. I will say this movie's not for everyone. It's a 3-hour movie, and even though a 3-hour movie is long, it's a fast-paced film. I mean, there's a lot of quick cuts, there's a lot of fast dialogue. Like, it is a movie you're going to have to probably see a couple times to pick up on every single subtle thing, like all of Nolan's movies are. But it's not a slow-paced film at all, nor is it boring. But this type of material, these sort of historic, biopics, are not for everyone. Obviously, they're not for everyone. And Nolan doesn't really go down the route of like Quentin Tarantino, where he takes like historic events and just makes them into a clown show. That's not what happens here. But he takes these historical events, sort of like what he did with Dunkirk. This is a great companion film to Dunkirk. Like, after seeing this movie, I actually wanted to watch Dunkirk again, because they kind of are like, like brother and sister. They're siblings in a way, so to speak. So this is a very sophisticated film. This is not really a movie that you can take kids to, or maybe even teenagers to. This is a very thought-provoking movie, definitely made for adults and definitely made for fans of cinema, without question. But if you're a big World War II guy, you're going to like the movie. If you're really big on science and tech, you're going to like it. And if you like suspense thrillers and like Nolan types of twists and things like that and some interesting reveals and editing, you're going to appreciate all of the incredible work that was put into this, bro. Every single shot of this movie was very well crafted. Just when people keep saying, because I see this all the time, that Nolan is overrated or whatever, people are on his dick too much. I do understand people saying that, but the guy delivers quality movies. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I understand that Tenet may have been too confusing for some. I totally understand that. I don't think this movie is anywhere near as mind-numbing as Tenet was for people. But it's definitely a movie that's made for adults to talk about. That's what this movie's made for. And I'm probably gonna assume I'm gonna see some people talking about how it was boring and this and that. I don't know if they're gonna say that. I honestly don't. But it really, it is dialogue heavy, but it's not boring. The dialogue and the characters really do carry this movie, and the performances. It was almost like they knew by reading the script they were going to be in a very special film, and they brought it. I mean, they brought it, yo. And something to be aware of too, besides just Robert Downey Jr., a lot of the actors in this film took pay cuts to be in the movie. And so that should tell you right there that this was a passion project for everybody involved. And it's a movie that I think might actually appreciate in value. People are going to like this movie more as time goes by, especially with how things are in the geopolitical landscape now compared to back then. So there's a lot to enjoy with this movie. It's definitely a movie you're going to be thinking about after you see it, and those are the best films. Anyways, yo, those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you thought about Oppenheimer, and I'll talk to you in the next video.